First step is defining the site. Using the prospector, check your files, right mouse click on the sites, and what you want to do is add, right mouse click, new, and this is the site. So your site should be your letter number as per the studio or course grid. You can see I've already defined a site F, but I've made a new site called Site F Demo. Alright, so that should be your active site. When you're defining your corridor and your profiles, you want to associate everything with that. Second, I've defined a layer called L Proposed Path. I suggest that everyone in the course create that layer so that you can reference the beginning and the end of your neighbor's paths. Used a standard color magenta. You know I stay away from those fancy numbers if possible. And I made it the active layer. So you can see that I'm about to make L Proposed Path the current layer. Though it appears to take me some time to do that. Green checkbox. Alright, so we're zooming in. There's the beginning of my path and the ending of the path where I meet E and G. I've made a line and offset it 10 feet. This is how I did it. Snap to that endpoint of the boundary, use the offset. I'm going to do it a couple times, 3 feet and then possibly 6 feet to see if I can minimize that perpendicular dimension. And then I'm offsetting that 10 feet so that I could have a really nice radius as I connect to sites, my neighboring sites. So I'm just going to extend those lines. I can have a good trim surface. Alright, now I'm going to draw the perpendicular. There we go. So I'll use a crossing window, lower right to upper left, trim off those extra bits. Lower right, upper left, crossing window. Alright, so this is important here because you notice that I snapped. So I'm going to try to turn this into a polyline by joining all those segments. Alright, so read the command prompt, 0 segments added. What that means is that they're all at different z heights because I snapped to a point that's on the boundary. So what I need to do is using the properties editor, check to see what the z heights are at the beginning and the end. There's the culprit, it's at 5. Turn it to 0. Now I can repeat my polyline exercise, p-edit. Yep, turn it into one. Yep, join it to its neighbors. And success, hopefully. See, 2 segments added, good. So we're going to use this as the base information for my alignment. And we're going to create an alignment from the AutoCAD objects. So there we go, alignment. Good. So we're going to change that polyline, turn it into an alignment. So alignment. Okay, create an alignment. Hold on a second, alignment from, not an existing alignment, from objects. There we go. Select the object, good, hit enter. Check the direction. Now we fill out the date, associate it with the appropriate site. It is a proposed. All Alright, no labels. Don't delete the entities just in case you got to repeat it. And there we go. File save. Now, as you remember from the sections exercise, once you create the alignment, what you want to do is create a profile. So you got the path. Alright, station points, existing site, add it here, and now you can draw it in the profile view. I'm going to step through these things as you know, and then change the user specified from 0 to 16. Next. Fantastic. Create the profile view. And I like to do it in close proximity to my site. So now you can see, using that alignment, there's a relationship between the verticals and each one of the station points, and the red dotted line is the existing ground. So the next step here is to create a design profile. What do I want it to look like? Alright, fine. So I'm going to do a little bit of layout here. So this is why I like to draft these profile views without the vertical exaggeration. So I'm trying to find the midpoint of the path. I can snap to any of the entities here to help me figure this out. Alright, now I'm having a little problem with the UCS icon, so try to ignore this. Notice you can't trim. So I come up with the next best thing, snap to a parent intersection. Right mouse click. There we go. Done. And I was drafting in ortho mode. Okay, so this is where I have to set my intent for my design profile. Select the profile in which you're going to draft your new design elements. Okay. Take advantage of these tools. So I use the tangent, and I'm just going to go from the start point to the end point, to the midpoint, excuse me, midpoint, back down to the end. Alright, good. Now, what this doesn't do is allow us to anticipate that my recommendation that you meet your neighbor with the a flat portion with 0% slope. But what you can see here is that in blue is the percentage slope. So we're a little over 5% on the down slope, second half of the path. So we're going to have to do a little bit of transformation here. So if I make it closer, you notice my slope increases. So I'm going to move it further, and then probably further again, so that the high point is earlier in the path. There we go. So that increases to about 2.61. And then down here we're less than 5. So that's exactly where we want to be. Now if you notice, we can look at it by looking at the table here in the panorama. We can change the slopes in that location as well. But this is where I'm going to insert a new station point so that I can actually get that little flat portion in order to ease my meeting with the neighbor. So I'm going to make a line, offset it 3 or 6 feet depending. I'll do this also on the other side. You don't have to do all this footutzing, but I chose to. It was easier to meet my neighbors flat rather than sloped. So I'll just stretch the line using the grip. Alright, so there's the begin. That's where I want to add a station point. Alright, and that's the... Now I'm going to add the station point there. And then I can grab it with the grip and stretch it downward so that that little section there has a 0% slope. So you can see how it responds in the drawing. We're going to repeat the same thing on the right hand side, or the early portion of the section or path. we go. Save the file, as always. Now I'm going to show you the table editor here. You can see where we begin at 0, and these are the slopes. Excellent. Now, in earlier things, I actually changed. There's a 0% slope, and then I added 2% slope from that. Let's call that the 0% slope landing. But as you know from your tech course, it should have some sort of a grade to it. It has a cross slope. Next important, the assembly. So we're going to go to the create. We're going to make sure that the assembly layer is active. It doesn't really matter. It'll automatically put it on this layer, but I tend to prefer. There we are, C-Road Assembly. Go to the Create tab, Assembly, Create Assembly. All right, what's its name? I'm going to add today's date because, as you know, I can be absent-minded. And we know it's an undivided crown road. Okay, so this is the insertion point for the assembly. All right, there's nothing associated with it, so we're going to go to the tool palette, and we're going to look at the two tabs, one for basic and one for generic. So let's go to the basic tab, and we're going to use a basic lane. Why make our own when we can take one from AutoCAD? So you select and click on the opposite side of the insertion point, that little red node there, to define your two lanes. Now you'll notice I unfortunately have made two on the left-hand portion of the road, so I deleted that. It happens. Save the file. Okay, zoom out. Select the subassembly that you would like to edit. Right, subassembly properties, and this is where we can set the slope, the cross slope of that, as well as the width. We're going to have a simple 10-foot path, and we'll repeat that on both the right and the left. Okay, now what's missing? What's missing is that we don't have any directions on how to meet the existing ground. So we're going to add a little bit more to our subassembly by going to the generic tab, and we're going to link slope to surface. Now notice I'm going to repeat this 2 times on both sides so that we can have a solution in both a cut and a fill condition. So notice I click twice on that node on both the right and the left side, and you'll now see the result. Good. So now you're going to select that entity, go to the subassembly properties dialog box, hit the parameters, and now it's going to be either we're going to change it from a 2% to a 33%, so 1 in 3 slope. And we're going to have that in a positive condition if it is below the ground, so in a cut. And now we're going to edit it again. And here's, breaking convention, negative 33%, so that in a fill condition, it will also seek a solution. All right, if we only do it in one, it'll only seek to do it in that one resolution. All right. Only that the slope will either go in one direction. We would like it to seek that it would do it in both a positive and a negative, depending upon where it hits the site. All right, same thing, negative 33%. Apply. Okay. All right, zoom out. This is the fun part. File save. Okay, so what's next? We now need to make an association between the assembly and the design profile. So we're going to create a corridor, Make sure it has a name you can recognize. Notice I pause over this quite frequently, so it's FPath. Basic style, fine. That's the name of the layer. It's alignment and profile. There's the path, right? There's the design profile I just made. And what's the name of the assembly? The assembly I just made, and the target surface is the existing ground. Go OK. All right, so here's where you double check. You notice here that I like to increase the frequency where it samples along curves. I change it to 10. Sometimes 8 might work. I just use a even number. Now, remember, the more samples, the more data, the more complex. Everything here looks pretty correct, or it is correct. Apply. Now we need to build the corridor again with my new directions. You see that little exclamation point. Apply. OK. Now, if you get errors, it means that you've either gone beyond the site. It'll certainly let you know. So let's zoom in on this corridor. You can see the frequency of samples. You can see the red lines. That's where we're in a cut condition. If you zoom in further, you can see the green. That's where we're in a fill. Now we know from looking at our design profile that we've attempted to minimize that, so things look pretty good here. Now, your instructor anticipated, right? She has a nice straight portion before she gets to the arc. So therefore, right, I'm not going to have what's called a bow tie. So you'll notice what a bow tie looks like. And there is a set of tools and a tutorial online for you to solve that. So now we're looking at it in 3D. You can see the cut condition to the right and the fill condition to the left. Rotate this a little bit. All right, so what we don't see are the contours. So what we're going to do next is be able to create a surface from this corridor and then display the design contours in relationship to the existing contours. All right, fine. So I've highlighted my corridor. Notice that we're getting, I want to confirm the name. We've got that green highlight, so it's a context specific, and we're going to create a corridor surface. So first you say, fine, make a surface. Use that corridor. All right, now that's not enough. You need to tell it which part of the subassembly codes to use to make that surface. And we're only interested in the top. Okay, so top, add, rebuild the corridor. Good, okay. Now you'll notice that something shows up over there in your surface menu. And you notice that some red contours have popped up or displayed themselves in the plan view. All right, so I froze those corridor layers, and here you can see the design contours, right, with that perfect crown and how it meets up with your existing surface. Good. Now there are situations here where you can get really fancy. You can add a break line so that the ground turns precisely where you define. So that corridor surface is just like any other design surface that you've seen before. So in this situation, you're beginning to prepare for submitting the assignment. So I've turned off the extraneous information in terms of the alignment, and I'd like to try to just turn on the boundaries of the corridor so that you'll see the edges of the corridor and you'll see the proposed contours in relationship to the existing contours. And that's how you should begin to prepare your project for submission. Okay, and as usual, I'm having trouble with the layers menu. Good, so there goes the extra sort of samples. You see the samples from a horizontal sampling along the corridor. I anticipate that you're going to want to turn off the points in the existing ground display. And then double check your line weights and your line types for preparation to submit the exercise.